Stop buying these cars with these engines. Mechanics hate them, owners lie about them, and some of these engines fail so often mechanics can diagnose them from the parking lot. Engines so catastrophic, they've basically funded mechanics' vacations, boat payments, lake houses, and at least 3 divorces along the way. Today, we're talking about the engines mechanics constantly warn people about, the vehicles they've infected, and before anybody gets emotional, some of these engines survive. People also survive getting struck by lightning. That doesn't make it a good strategy. The first engine we'll talk, the BMW N63, is their twin-turbo V8. Quite possibly the greatest engineering disaster ever wrapped in German confidence. BMW engineers apparently looked at a normal engine and thought, you know what this needs? More heat. Way more heat. Let's put the turbos inside the V. Brilliant. Now everything cooks together like an expensive Bavarian casserole. Mechanics constantly complain about valve stem seals, timing chain wear, turbocharger failure, coolant leaks, injector problems, and battery drain, not to mention oil consumption. Wow, some owners add more oil than they add gasoline, and BMW actually launched a massive customer care package program because these engines were aging like unrefrigerated milk. BMWs with these N63s, the 550, the 650, 750, X550i, X650i, and here's where people get trapped. You see a twin-turbo V8 BMW for 13 grand, and your brain says, wow, what a deal, I need that. The car is so cheap because the previous owner escaped. That's not depreciation, that's witness protection. Our one BMW technician literally said every N63 eventually needs major work, which sounds like a warning and more like a factory feature. And look, I'm not judging. Years ago, I almost bought a used 750 Li because I thought, how bad could this really be? The sentence has finally ruined millions of people, and ultimately, people learn the hard way. The second engine goes to the Ford F5.4 3-valve Triton engine. Now let's move to America. The 5.4 3-valve is an engine so frustrating, mechanics developed an emotional trauma, spark plugs alone, the plugs that break off inside the engine or eject themselves out like an abandoning ship. Imagine building an engine where spark plugs become a ballistic missile. Yeah, major issues include broken spark plugs, cam phaser failures, timing chain failures, and oil pressure problems. You can find these in the goofy little F-150s, the Expeditions, and the Lincoln Navigators. And Ford guys defend these engines too. That's the weird part. Ford owners are unbelievably loyal. A guy will say, yeah, I replaced the timing chain system twice and rebuilt the top end. Then immediately follow the best truck I ever had. Sir, of course, the relationship is so abusive. One mechanic described Triton repairs as removing one broken part to discover 3 more underneath. Basically, mechanical archaeology. Wow. I can't believe anybody buys those. The third engine, naturally, wow. Subaru owners, please lower your vape pens just for a minute, would you? The EJ25, the engine most famous for turning head gaskets into consumable maintenance items. Mechanics constantly report head gasket failures, overheating, oil leaks, ringland failures, spun bearings on modified cars, especially those tuned cars like the WRXs. And that's the issue. Subaru owners modify these cars immediately, which is bold and wow, because these engines are already arriving from the factory under emotional stress. You can find them in the WRX, the STI, Forester XT, Legacy GT, and the Outback. Yeah, broke back Outback XT style. One Subaru mechanic said every modified EJ is running on hope. That basically means medically accurate. And I would say humility because years ago, I almost bought a modified STI from a guy named Cody whose entire personality was energy drinks. The car had mismatched tires, a crackle tune, and an exhaust loud enough to violate international law. I genuinely considered, so yes, I too have been stupid. We've all made those mistakes, but we just get wiser with age. The fourth engine that you've got to avoid, cheap German luxury. Of course, we're talking about the beautiful EA888, the early generation. You find a beautiful Audi A4 for a Civic money and think, I've outsmarted the market, yes. Meanwhile, the timing chain tensioners on the background loading a weapon. The EA888 engines became notorious for timing chain tensioner failure and catastrophic oil consumption, carbon buildup, turbo failures. Some owners carried spare oil in the trunk permanently. At that point, you don't need a luxury car, you own a very elegant lawnmower. Vehicles for those were the Audi A4, A5, the Volkswagen GTI, Tiguan, Passat, and Mechanics especially warn buyers about the timing chain issue because if it fails, you basically get valves and pistons meeting each other at high speed, violently. And the crazy thing is, people keep buying this junk because the interiors are gorgeous and Audi knows exactly what they're doing, right? And distract you from the ambient lighting while your savings account quietly dies. Unbelievable. Who buys that? But the next vehicle, number 5, sadly, is a Chrysler 2.7-liter V6. Brutal. This engine was less of a powertrain and more of a long-term financial experiment. The Chrysler 2.7 became infamous for sludge and buildup, and so severe mechanics were basically excavating engines like paleontologists. Major problems were sludge, oil starvation, timing chains, again, seized engines found in the Dodge Intrepid, Chrysler Sebring, and of course the ugly Concorde. One mechanic said if the oil changes weren't perfect, the engine was already dead. That's comforting to know. I've seen these, I've known people with these, and remember, these were marked as affordable family cars. Nothing says family values quite like a catastrophic engine failure at 97,000 miles. Oh, the beautiful memories, right? Guess what? Number 6 goes to one that we talk about oh so much. We're talking about the Land Rover 5-liter supercharged V8. Yes, Range Rover, the official vehicle of professional athletes, influencers, and people who enjoy surprise invoices. Now, to be fair, when these are working, phenomenal. Amazing interiors, amazing road presence, and fantastic power. But mechanically, absolute theater. Mechanics constantly report timing chain guide failures, coolant leaks, water pump problems, and of course, supercharged failures. Repairs are expensive too. Not Honda expensive. You like financing options for your repair bill? Expensive. Yeah, you can find these, of course, in the Range Rovers, the Range Rover Sports, the Jaguar XJ, and the F-Type. And I had one. I love the F-Type, and it was good for me, but I only had 60,000 kilometers. So, to be fair, it didn't have enough time to find its niche. One Land Rover tech admitted that most smart owners will sell them before 100,000 miles, which honestly should be engraved into the dashboard. And look, I love Range Rovers. I really do. But loving a Range Rovers is like dating someone extremely attractive who steals your wallet repeatedly. You just must accept responsibility. Like, honestly, not the best, most reliable. Number 7 is, of course, wow, these are brutal. The engines got so bad, lawyers got involved. The Theta 2 became infamous for the rod bearing failures, knocking, engine seizures, fires. Yeah, fires. You heard that right. Which generally lowers the resale value just a little bit. And mechanics saw these fail constantly, and recalls exploded across multiple models. You can find these crappers in Hyundai Sonatas, Kia Optimas, Santa Fe's, and of course, even the Sportage, which is a cute little unit. One mechanic joked the engine light is just the countdown timer. Yeah, I know, I'm savage. But honestly, not entirely unfair, right? And to Hyundai's credit, their newer stuff is a little bit better, but this engine, this thing damaged trust harder than Nissan CVT. Well, enough about those guys. How about the Cadillac Northstar? Of course, the Northstar with its luxury V8, famous for introducing thousands of owners to head gasket failure. Mechanics constantly dealt with overheating and head bolt failures, coolant problems, oil leaks, and fixing them properly often meant a major labor. Of course, you could find that in a Cadillac DeVille, DTS, and Seville. And the sad part, these cars looked incredible. You felt like, I don't know, you felt pretty damn cool, but they had a presence. You felt important driving one. Right until the coolant entered another dimension. One mechanic described the Northstar repairs as financially irrational, which is exactly what you want associated with your luxury sedan. And honestly, I almost bought one years ago because it was only $4,500. Thankfully, an older mechanic neighbor of mine looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "Son, don't do it. Promise me, you will regret." The man probably saved my credit score and my sanity, for being honest. Now, that being said, of course, what's the lesson here? It's quite simple. A cheap luxury car can become the most expensive mistake of your life. And mechanics, well, let's just say they notice these problems. They know them in advance. When thousands of technicians all say the same thing, please avoid this engine. Maybe don't convince yourself you're the chosen one because every car guy believes that mine's different, I'll be different, I'll have some success. Guess what? No, you would be deadly wrong. And you'll be on Facebook Marketplace describing engines as probably just needs a sensor. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like. Don't forget to drop a comment section down below. And if you want to hit another great video, check out those ones. The best BMWs you can buy and the best Lexus. If you like reliability, that's probably going to be your game. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon. And don't forget to get your merch just like this. Talk to you then. See you then. Bye-bye.